Welcome, everybody, to another episode of From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Bateman, and I'm really excited today. We've got a special guest with us today, Dr. Terrence Johnson of iProgress. Terrence, how are you doing today?
Good, Jamie. How you doing? Thanks
I'm
for having
doing, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to have you. Yeah, I'm doing well. Now, where are you located?
So I'm located in Gallatin, Tennessee. So I'm
Okay,
about 30 miles from Nashville. But
nice.
I'm originally from Jackson, Mississippi. So that's where our business is located, but I'm in Gallatin right now.
Okay, now how far apart are those two towns?
Where like Jackson?
Yeah, where you are now
Jackson.
and where your business is.
So Jackson is about 7 hours from here, I want to say.
Gotcha. That's
Yeah, give or take.
yeah, that's pretty far. I've got one note in Jackson, Mississippi that's actually supposed to be paid off today. So there are some real estate investors out there who really like Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah,
But
yeah. You familiar
then
with the Fondren area in Jackson?
no, where is that?
Fondren is kind of up north, like North Jackson, but it's kind
Okay,
of where a lot of people came in and rehabbed a lot of houses and
sure,
development. So it's kind of like a up and coming kind of neighborhood. So that's where a
got it.
lot of people. So that's where I used
Yeah,
to live in
got it.
Fondren.
Okay. Got it. So for now, you and I connected, I think, in a Facebook group.
Yep.
So truth be told, we don't know each other that well.
The first time we've been on had a conversation. So.
Exactly. We traded a few messages and a couple emails or something, but I
Yeah.
checked out your website beforehand and we
Yeah.
talked about your story a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it fits perfectly for this show.
Right.
And like I said, this show is essentially brand new. I don't have a huge following yet, but I'm hopeful that this episode and your story can help kind of
Yeah.
build on the momentum we've created, and also add a lot of value for our listeners, and then also add some value as well for you.
Yeah.
So for those listeners who are not familiar with you, why don't you let us know who you are and what you're up to today?
Okay. So like I said, like James said, I'm Dr. Terrence Johnson. Um, my background, I guess I started want to be a helper. So that's kind of where it started from for me. I didn't know what form that would look like when I was younger. I just knew
Okay.
people just always like to talk to me. People would just come up to me when I was little and just come talk to me. So I'm like, okay, this is something. I don't
You're
know
a
what
good
this is.
listener, I guess, huh?
Yeah, so that was part of it, but I didn't know what I wanted to do going into college, because at first I
Sure.
thought I wanted to do like physical therapy or stuff like that. I took
Yep.
an art class, and then I thought it was architecture. So that's actually what my major was.
Okay. Architecture.
Uh-huh. And so I was an architecture major for like a year or so at Mississippi State. So that's
Okay.
that's where I graduated from.
There you
So
go.
and I was doing models, I was doing all that kind of stuff, but I feel like I really want to make more of an impact with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I changed my major to psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and so started to kind of come about. But even with that, I still was doing some other stuff on campus. Like I wrote for the school newspaper for a year. I was a peer counselor for a year. I was a tutor for student support services for like disabled students. So
Okay.
I got different shades of kind of helping different types of people.
Sure.
Um, I graduated. I was trying to figure out what I want to do for grad school. I actually thought about going to film school.
Okay.
And then I ended up getting in counselor education, and that's my master's in, and so it's kind of like student affairs and community counseling.
Yeah.
So my first real job was working with adolescent offenders, so kids that
Okay.
had been in youth court, kids in alternative school, kids nobody else wanted. Those were my kids. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
worked with. That's what I started with. So I went into the house. I did home visits. I talked to the moms and the aunts and grandmothers, and went to the schools and whatever. And so I've seen people go through a lot of different adversity
Mm-hmm.
through my
Right.
work.
Sure. Yeah. So just what's a kind of a high level snapshot of your business today, or your profession or your role right
Yeah.
now?
So for me now, I'm more of, I won't say not necessarily behind the scenes, but I'm more of the like, innovation piece. So that's my role in the business is chief innovation officer.
Okay.
So I'm always looking at trying to find ways to integrate technology into the helping space
Hmm.
to do it
Okay.
better. So whether there's online workshops, online courses that people can get into, or using technology in a way that helps us rather than hurts us, because with social media,
Hmm.
how much consumption we have on our phones and our
Yeah.
tablets and TV, we're
Yeah.
always getting so many messages from so many different places that we can't
Sure.
really tune into ourselves
Yeah.
and know
No.
what that sounds like. And
Right.
so a lot of issues are because we can't hear ourselves. People tell us what we should know, what we should be, how we
Hmm.
should dress, what we should, live, what we should
Yeah.
drive. We got all these different messages, but is that what I really want?
Hmm. No, that's really good. And I think of technology kind of like I think of money, or
Yeah,
a lot of other things where, not to get too philosophical, but that they're not, technology is not evil or good. It's not,
right.
money is not evil or good. This is just my opinion.
No,
But they're very powerful, right? Extremely powerful,
Mhm.
and can be used for good and can be used for bad.
Right,
And so it sounds like you're doing your part to try to kind of be a positive role model and influence people in a positive way,
right.
in the technology space. So how long has your business been around for?
So 2019 is when we both officially went full time, but we've had the business since around, I think, 2016. But we were
Okay.
both, my business partner and I, we were both working full time.
Yeah.
So before I transitioned full time into the business, I was a professor. So I was a
Okay.
full time college professor for, I, I was faculty for 4 years, and I was adjunct for like three before that. So I taught for a total number like 7 years.
Okay. Gotcha.
So some of the things that I do now is taking elements of the teaching part, counseling
Hmm.
part, all these different things,
Hmm.
bringing them together.
Yeah.
And
That's cool. Our listener base, we do appeal to investors and small business owners, and a lot of our audience, has that mindset of, hey, I want to leave my full-time job at, some point. And that's a whole different discussion. It's a very personal thing. I've been part-time at my quote unquote real job since for about the last 7-8 years, but I actually just resigned myself to finally fully go into business full time. And I know that's kind of like the dream. So we can touch on that later.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to do is kind of go through one or two examples. I hate to be too, quick about it, because
No, that's fine.
and you being a counselor, you could probably tell me how I should be doing this, right? But um, as far as, on this show, we do want to drill down into some adversity and some difficulties that people have been through on a personal level. Certainly there, we never, go, we don't go too far into that. I mean, because for one thing, we don't have unlimited time here, but
Right.
so I'd like to hit on one or two things that kind of stand out in your own personal background as far as
Yeah.
challenges that you've faced, and then maybe we can, we'll see where it goes. We can maybe touch on some of the adversity you've dealt with, as a counselor or a professor, or in your
Yeah. Yeah.
current role. So
Yeah.
you can kind of go back and walk us through your background if you want to approach it that way, or if you want to jump right to something that was a really challenging time for you. Whichever way you want to go with it works.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, I'll go to a recent one, and then I'll probably go back.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think that'll be the quickest way. So one thing, and like I said, I like the name of the podcast because I think is so many different ways, so many different takes you can take on it.
Hmm.
But like November last year, I lost my dad. And so that was something that, as part of my story, it wasn't that I was like not anticipating it happening. I just wasn't anticipating it happening right then.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that made that not as a bad of a situation,
Mm-hmm.
because we had time to like mend our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a chance to talk about a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about, when I was younger, that might have been barriers to stuff. And I think that's the lesson to some things with adversity. Sometimes adversity forces you to do things that you probably wouldn't do if the best case scenario was going on,
Right.
because things are
Right.
happening like, I need to do this, or I need to say this, or I need to make sure that I'm telling people around me how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So if that day or when that day comes and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have the person around, you don't have that regret. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, that was one of the things, because that's one thing is people ask me after my dad passed, like, how do you feel? Like, I'm at peace because he's at peace. I didn't have anything left to say to him.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speak to your relationship with your father, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as you said, you got to say some things you hadn't said before, or
Yeah.
were there, no relationship is perfect, but
Right.
were there issues, or was it more just like things you are glad you got to say, or what, how was your relationship before he
Yeah.
passed?
So before he passed, it was great. Like the last probably 10 years, like my dad was my best friend.
Okay.
That wasn't the case. Like when I was young.
Wasn't the case before.
It wasn't
Got
the
it.
case before. But just with anything, uh, it's learning to actually communicate how you really feel about things, even if it might be difficult for people to accept.
Accept that. Sure. Yep.
But not coming from a malicious place of like, oh, you bad. Like, I'm just telling you how I felt about certain things. So it's like, it was a part where my dad was a part of my life. When I was younger, we did a lot of stuff together, and then he wasn't around, and it was like various things that was going on. So a lot of dynamics changed in our family, and I was still holding on to that when I went into college. So that's a lot of my like going and determination and achievement was like, I got to prove a point. And as I got older, I realized I didn't have to prove anything to like him or me. and so it made it like I'm not chasing things now. It's like I do it because I feel like I'm led a call to do it, versus I need to do it so people can see it, people can validate me for doing it.
Sure.
And that's the feeling.
It's a different perspective and a different mindset.
Yeah, it's a different.
Okay. So then, but things progressed, and over the last 10 years, you guys were much closer.
Yeah. And we were much closer because I did a lot of caretaking for my dad.
Okay.
So he
was sick, right?
Yeah, he was sick. Like, he had an aneurysm about 10 years ago, he had like a stroke, so the whole time I was doing that, like in school and all that kind of stuff, I was taking care of him too.
That's a lot. My wife's mother was sick for several years, and she and her sisters both did a lot of the caretaking, and it wears on everybody, including the rest of the family, right?
Yeah.
And
it's a whole family. It's a whole family experience.
It's easy to cross right over that. Oh, I took care of my dad for, it's like,
it's a lot.
That's a lot. So that's kudos to you for doing that. So then, is there anything else you wanted to touch on that topic?
No, I think one thing that I appreciated, well, it taught me how to give sometimes in ways that you don't necessarily receive back. Cause like I was saying with the caregiving type thing. Some of the
Yeah.
stuff you give, you might not be able to get back because of the condition of the person you taking care of.
Sure.
And so you invest in a lot of time and energy into getting them back up
Mhm.
and going. It's like, how'd I get back? You know what I'm
What's
saying?
in this for me?
Yeah. And it's not like, oh,
No.
like you owe me, but it's
Right.
investment of time and energy.
Hmm.
And so I think just appreciating that I was at a point where I could do that. Like I had the space to do that
Hmm.
and gave, and because I wanted to do it, even if it
Right.
was challenging at times.
Yeah.
But and like it comes back around. So it's like I think anything you do for people, even if that person is not able to reciprocate in the same way, it's gonna come back around to you.
Mhm.
Something.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's just a servant, mindset and
Yeah.
attitude. And we could certainly use a little more of that in our culture today, I think.
Yeah.
Looking out
Yeah.
for each other and their loved ones.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so that's a recent example. You mentioned maybe some adversity that was took place earlier on in your upbringing,
Yeah.
or
I think one of the main adversities for me has been uh like narrowing down what I want to do because I can do
hmm
so many different things. It's
hmm
like, how do I like choose one?
sure,
and,
yeah,
and for me, I believe so. Just like with my dad, that then opens up a different story that connects to somebody. But I've also been to the place where I burned out. Like I had to have a emergency appendectomy
oh
because
wow,
like that happened while I was at work. I was at work. I think I was just finishing up like a workshop on campus because I worked in the counseling center before I started full-time teaching.
hmm
I just wasn't good at taking care of myself. And like I literally went to my doctor. He referred me for MRI. They get the results and they're like, hey, we
yeah,
gotta pay you for surgery. I was like, when? They're like, now. Like I
wow,
got wheeled across
wow,
the crosswalk and prep for surgery like that
wow,
day. And I was gonna go to work that day actually. But I went on and got checked out. And if I went to work, it probably would have ruptured. But they caught it before it ruptured. And so
Hmm.
like I've had that.
Yeah,
It's just different things.
sure,
And it's your body's way of like, hey, look, I know you're trying to do this. I know you're trying to do a
right.
lot, but hey, you need to sit down for me.
Now, is that you say you weren't taking good care of yourself? Just briefly, is that like just working too much, or not eating the right foods, or not exercising, or what?
Like all
All
of
of
it,
the above.
all of it, because it's like either I'm balanced to where I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising, doing that, or I'm
Mhm.
not, and then I'm not sleeping like I need to. I'm eating a
Mm,
lot of fried food,
yeah.
all kind of stuff, and so it's kind of maintaining that balance of knowing
Mhm.
what works best for my body.
Sure.
So after that, I made a point, and at that time I was still, dad was still in the hospital back and forth. So I was still doing a lot of the other stuff too.
Yeah, not just work, right?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
a lot of different stuff. And so but then self-care became more of a focus for me.
Mhm.
So I became more holistic. So I got into more vitamins and
Mhm.
natural stuff
Mhm.
and doing nature walks and all that kind of stuff. I eventually got into rucking, which I enjoy that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it just certain things had to happen.
Yeah.
Then you can take a evaluation or assessment of yourself.
Well, and it's like to me that um just kind of reminds me that even if your profession is maybe a noble one, or
Right.
you're or maybe you're you know you're serving at your church, or you're volunteering, like I
Mhm.
know people who've gotten sucked into doing that way too much. And I
Yeah.
don't think I'm on the verge of that at this point, but no, but I mean anything to an extreme can be bad, I guess, is really
Yeah.
what I'm getting to is. So
Yeah.
even though you had set out to be to serve other people, help other people, you were running yourself into the ground, and
Mm.
that doesn't do anyone any good in the long term,
Oh yeah.
including yourself. So, well,
Yeah.
okay, well, so why don't we transition, to maybe one or two kind of examples of adversity that you've dealt with from a professional standpoint.
Yeah.
Obviously we're not going to get into who we're talking about, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you'll probably
Yeah.
leave out some of the details, but yeah, speak to one or two examples you've seen of, because you do have a unique, perspective. I mean, you're not, I haven't had anyone on the show yet that's got your background or your
Yeah.
position. So this ought to be interesting.
Yeah. For me, to like the most recent one was one last year. So I applied for a fellowship. And I spent probably about a month before it opened up for the window to submit. Before, I was already getting stuff together. I was writing stuff up, researching stuff. So I spent
Just
a month.
for the listener out there, what does that mean exactly?
Okay.
What is a fellowship?
Okay, so a fellowship basically is like the one that I was applying for was for like social entrepreneurship. So people in business that want to do like greater good things to like impact the community.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's like funding for you to continue to work on what you're working on.
Okay, that's cool.
And so I was like, okay, this is the one, this is it.
Yeah.
This is the way to connect to other people and move around. And they have like a mentorship component to it where you can kind of connect to other people. Mm-hmm. So you had to do pretty much just like you would do a business pitch, but you had to do a proposal thing.
Okay, got it.
So that's what I did the month of prep for, and doing all that kind of stuff. I had to do like a quick video explaining what I wanted to do and all that. Then I actually had to submit it. I had 2 weeks to submit it, and it's probably like a year. Okay, it was like April of last year. Took all that time. I'm literally like all day, every day working on this. Mm-hmm. Submitted the day of, so like a 2-week window. I think it was that Sunday. I submitted. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. Okay, they said it's supposed to be, coming soon. Like,
right.
Okay, wait. And then I get the email, hey, we thank you for submitting, but unfortunately, we're not moving forward. You're not moving forward to the next round, and da 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 da. And I'm like devastated. So I'm like, okay, like what I'm supposed to do with this? But what I did is I kind of took a couple hours for me to go ahead and feel it. And I was like,
it's right. It's not
yeah. And then
you got to wallow a little bit and feel that.
I had to feel it. Mm-hmm. And then afterward, I shifted into, okay, what am I going to do now? Mm-hmm. So actually, I took that energy and took some of the stuff that I wrote up for that, and then used that for the foundation for the online course I built.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I didn't just throw it away.
Yeah.
I just repackaged it and used it in a way. And so now people are starting to get into the course, and it's been benefiting people. Right. It might not be at the level and the pace that I wanted. Yeah. But I didn't have to waste it. So that rejection wasn't necessarily a rejection. It just wasn't the format for that particular thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. One of the guests we've had on is Fuquan Bilal. He's a real estate investor, but he was talking about when, and again, it takes time for this to happen. It's not something bad happened, I'll see this as an opportunity immediately. It's, one, you got to feel it, like you said, but you eventually you can come around to see that adversity as another door opening, or it's a new path that's created for you. Mm-hmm. And it may not have gone the way you thought it would, but there's still good that can come out of it. And so, no, that's really good. So you use that energy to kind of redirected that energy and that some of that content maybe, toward your online courses and your current business model. It sounds like. So how about any examples of tough situations you've dealt with from a counseling standpoint, or that other people have been through? that you've
Yeah.
helped them work through?
So because I'm not necessarily in the clinical piece now
Sure.
with
Right.
role I'm in, but when I was doing heavy clinical work, some of the most difficult things that I had to deal with, I dealt with clients that had a lot of grief and loss.
Hmm. Hmm.
And had not, it wasn't necessarily a lot to move them from grieving to like accepting that. But for me, I'm a I'm an all-in person. And so I
Hmm.
don't know how to like halfway do something. So
Yeah.
for me, when I'm counseling somebody, even when I was teaching or whatever, like every role I'm in, I'm stepping into the world of the people that I'm helping.
Hmm.
And in order
Right.
for me to do that, it's a lot of energy because
Yeah.
as a therapist, I'm not I'm not counseling you trying to tell you what to do.
Right.
From what you're telling me, I'm trying to step into your world and then show you your world back to you.
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
lot.
It's a lot on you. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, no, I joke that, that I know my wife, tells me about empathy, and I know how to spell empathy at
yeah,
least, but no, I mean, it's, I think part of the reason we create this kind of arm's length distance is because we know it's going to be challenging on ourselves emotionally, and taxing from an energy standpoint, like you said. And,
yeah.
um, so I guess looking back at in your clinical time,
Mhm.
what lessons would you say that our audience could use to apply, just generally speaking, to
Yeah.
help people get through adversity and get to more of an abundance mindset?
Well, people, people are amazing.
Mhm.
Like, and so the one thing that I would say that's unique about being in the mental health field
Mhm.
is you hear stories or you hear versions of the world that everyday people don't get to hear.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
whatever you think the world is, or what you hear on TV or whatever,
Right.
that's not the real world. It's almost kind of like the Matrix. It's like
Yeah.
when people come into the room and talk about their real life, what you hear people complain about, or like go back and forth and be on Twitter on social media, is like
Right.
you don't know real life. Like, you don't know
Yeah.
real life. These people are really living real life and
Yeah.
really still moving forward with all the challenges and all the things. So it's like, one is that where it's like people way more resilient than they give themselves credit for. But two, it helps me as a person not to think that my situation is so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good. I like both of those things that are related to each
Yeah.
other. But I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday, trying to get this guy on our show too. But his name's AJ Osborne. But I didn't realize how much, he's been through all kinds of just major health issues, and
Mhm.
was paralyzed for a long time, and really challenging circumstances. But he was saying the same thing, is that people don't understand how much they can go through. Like, we
Yeah.
underestimate ourselves as far as what we're able to handle.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like you said, and just having that perspective of, okay, maybe if my takeout order got messed up today, maybe that's not the end of the world.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because this
Yeah.
person over here is dealing with something serious. So, and that's
Yeah.
something that's helped me. Just this show has helped me already, just um, having some perspective. And,
Yeah.
I've had my share of adversity, but it's, and I try not to get into comparing too much, but it is
Right.
good. It is healthy, I think, to see somebody else's struggles, and just to say, you know what, I've got it pretty good. um
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, and I
yeah.
think that's what we miss. And that's one thing as far as mental health. People always feel mental health is for people that are mentally ill or they're
Hmm.
depressed or they're sad. But really, each one of us has a journey that we're on, and we're
Hmm.
all just trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
so, and that's why I don't. I don't really like to be set apart from people. Like even with, people know my background or my degree, whatever.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm still a person just like you are. And I still
Sure.
have stuff I had to deal with and go
Yeah.
through and make myself better as well. So it's like, I think sometimes that's what makes people feel like, oh, it's not for me to get better. Oh, the life I want, I can't achieve that because look at this person, look what they're doing, and look how they did. It's like, no, like if you like I tell people tell me out, they're like, oh, I want to be like you. I said, no, be like yourself. You don't want this, you don't want these experiences I had to go through to get to where I had to get to. Not that I complain about it, but it was adversity, and that's what it made me think about. I don't know if you watched I think it was a interview, John Batiste, the one that's on Colbert
Yeah, I
show.
know here. Yeah.
Yeah. So he won the Grammy and stuff that
Yeah.
like a month or so ago. So so this is like the best time in his life. But at the same time, his wife is going through cancer and like chemo treatments, and like her cancer came back. She was in remission for a lot of years. And so the time he was making the album, his wife was in the hospital the whole time. Like he had this great thing happen to him, and at the same time, he still got his wife that got stuff going on. And so it's like it can be the best and the worst of time at the same time. And it's usually how the abundance is. It doesn't feel as abundant because it always has an undercurrent of like something else you're going through.
Sure. Yeah. No. And again, with our show, it's, we talked before we hit record that adversity can take on many forms and abundance can take on many forms. Yeah. And I never want to present it like, oh, somebody went through 20 years of adversity and now they're going through 20 years of abundance or something like that. It's not like that, but there are definitely lessons we can learn from adversity, and our mindset is critical. And obviously you know that better than I do. So as we start to move toward the end of the show here, I'm going to fire off some rapid fire questions for you. And then we can talk a little bit at the very end about your business and wrap it up. All right. I'm going to fire these off quickly.
All right. What
do people misunderstand about you?
And I'm a fun person. I like to laugh. I like music, and I'm a nature person. So you put me outside by water, I'm good.
Nice. I like it. What was one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from that experience?
One of my biggest failures was, I think the first one I really felt that was a failure, but it really wasn't me changing my major. I thought that was like the end of the world at that point because I like people had invested money and stuff into me, and that's like a whole big thing. But it really wasn't. Once I changed it, people were like, okay, cool, that's what you want to do. So
no, I can relate to that. And you mentioned not knowing what you want to do. And I honestly bounced around a little bit after college, and I transferred colleges, and I did probably carry a little bit of guilt with that because of the investment that had been made in the original situation. And, I switched majors, and that's an interesting one, but, looking back at, you're only working with the information you have at the time, and, what else can you do? But, if you had to, speaking of that, if you had to go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
What I would give my 18-year-old self, I think I was a sophomore then. I would tell him that you got a journey ahead, but you'll be better because of it.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. All right. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would you choose? I didn't prep him for any of these questions.
Yeah, I know. It's good because I'm a big, like, oh man, just one.
It doesn't have to be your favorite. You can pick one of 10 that you would.
Okay, do they have to be living or can they be deceased?
They can be deceased.
Bruce Lee.
Okay. Why?
So that's another fun fact. So I got a black belt in karate.
Oh,
So
nice. Cool.
uh so yeah, Bruce Lee, I would been
Nice.
I would like people that innovate
Yeah.
and
Yeah, he
give
was
the space
definitely
to
an
change.
innovator.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I just dragged my kids Saturday to watch my brother-in-law and my niece get tests for their Taekwondo black belts. And I don't know if we've gotten word yet, but uh, that was pretty fun. They had a lot to go through. I did that years
Right.
ago as well. But yeah, martial arts, I always say there's not one best martial art.
Yeah, yeah.
They all have things you can learn from them and
Mhm.
apply.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bruce Lee, that's a good one. All right. Let's see here. We're almost done. What is a book or two you'd recommend for our audience?
Okay, so I'm a book person too.
Nice.
So one would be Claim Your Power by Maston Kip.
Okay. I don't know that one.
It's like a 40 day like journaling type book.
Uh-huh.
That was a book that I read when I was starting kind of like this shift into taking better care of myself and figuring out what I want to do in my life. So that's
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
The other one would be, I would say, Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
Okay.
So basically, and it's cool because it's like a little book, little coffee book, and you use the illustration to kind of do it. So it's a real quick read,
Mm-hmm.
but it's it's about ideas and about how you get ideas from anywhere and everywhere. It's not
Okay.
trying to emulate it, but you steal it and then you build off of it, like your take on it. But
Okay.
that's basically what it is. Everything we want to do or
Mm-hmm.
create is not necessarily our creation. It's like
Mm-hmm.
somebody else's, and then we kind of take our spin on
Well, I mean, it gets back to the innovation piece you were talking about.
it. Yeah.
You don't have to maybe recreate the wheel, but you might be able to improve it or
Yeah.
um, that's pretty cool. I haven't heard of either one of those, so I'll have to check those out.
Yeah.
Um, what's one question you wish I'd asked you that I haven't asked?
Mm, uh oh, because I'm a big music fan
Okay.
and movie fan. So either like, what's my favorite movie, or like, what's a song that I'm listening to right now.
Well, I have to ask those now. All right. What's one of your favorite movies?
my favorite, one of my favorite movies is Karate Kid. I love Karate Kid,
Nice.
the original one,
The
not
original, yeah. We just watched, the second one with the kids.
yeah, yeah,
But
that one, and yeah, I love the Karate Kid. That's
yeah,
what made me want to take
nice.
karate. Yeah,
What kind of music do you like?
everything. But I like jazz too. I get that from my dad. So my
Okay,
dad gives me the
cool.
jazz, and he used to play in a band in college. So
Okay. What
so
did he
he's,
play?
I think I would get it confused. I don't know if it's the trombone or the trumpet, but it's one of them.
Gotcha. Yeah,
It's one of the
got
so
it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I appreciate you humoring me with those rapid fire questions. They're not always the easiest. Make you think on your toes, I guess. But so why don't you talk a little about your business and how our listeners can reach out to you?
Yeah. So iProgress, it has a dual meaning.
Okay.
So it's little I and then progress, like the P is capitalized, because I think about like iPhone, iPad,
Yeah.
so I'm referencing the technology piece to it.
Yeah.
But also our progress is like little I and then capital P, because most people think that advancing themselves or making themselves better is for them, but really you make yourself better so everything else around you can improve.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's put
I
in
like that.
context, like I'm getting better because then that will help my family or like my community or
Right.
whatever I'm part of. And so that's kind of our take. So I'm more of the life purpose part of our progress. My business
Okay.
partner is healthy relationships. So
Okay.
he does a lot of work with couples. He still does a lot of therapy, So, and he has a relationship journal on Amazon that people can get. And so that's kind of like the balance
Mhm.
of the whole person. If you
Got it.
connect with what you're supposed to do and you have healthy relationship with yourself and other people, then that makes you a whole person.
Sure. Can you talk to my son for me? Uh, no, I'm just kidding. But so, okay. So within those, what kind of, just briefly, what are the main products? You mentioned the journal, but
Yeah. So
how does it actually manifest itself? What are people paying for?
all right. So for me, both of us just got back started doing virtual workshops. So I'm doing one right now. So I'm doing dream killers. And that's something that I worked on for a while. And
Okay.
so dream killers it's four personas. You have people pleaser,
Mhm.
overthinker, daydreamer, and doubter. So
Mhm.
all of these personas we have inside of us. I would tell people I'm a recovering people pleaser. That's helpful. So I would have to balance that out. And
Yeah.
it makes sense because it might be talking about mental health topics or subjects, but in a way that's relatable. Because as soon as I said all four of them, you're like, okay, I'm this one, I'm that one. Oh, I
Yeah.
get it. So it's that
Right.
instant connection. And so that'll I just finished that. That's going to be an online course as well. So each
Nice.
you have modules that go through each one with short video clips. The other one is Path to Purpose. And that's really the journey of starting out at the crossroads. You get a crossroads of life, like I don't know which road to take,
Mhm.
and figuring out, well, what do I really want to do with my life? And it's that journey of, you know, what do I need to be? Who do I need to connect with? All that. And so
Mhm.
it's in module form, like online course. So that's Path to Purpose. So those are the two main things for me for this
Got it.
year. And so they'll be in workshop form, online form, as well as I'm trying to do them live and really get back in front of people. I miss
Mhm.
in front of
Yeah.
people. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to do that. And so those are my two. My business partner has convos with couples that he does. So it's, basically what it is, conversation with couples
Mhm.
online about
Yep.
different stuff through the journal he has, journey through healthy relationships. And he does another one called No Junk Food Conversations. And that's for like
Hmm.
single people to kind
Okay.
of like figure out, you know, getting them on the track to finding the relationship they want and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And not being involved with people that's gonna waste their time.
Yeah, let's not waste time. Let's cut to the chase, right? Let's no, I mean, I think that's good to have more quality conversations because you look back and you're like, I didn't actually have that much time with that person.
Right. Right.
Um, so as we wrap up here, I really appreciate you coming on. How can our listeners reach out to you? I know your website is iProgress.cc.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh, any other
So
ways that our listeners can find you?
the easiest way would be email. So info@iprogresscc.com. That's probably the easiest way. We're on Facebook. You can follow us at iprogresscc on Facebook, Instagram. Um, Both myself and my business partner, we're both on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out directly, if you're on LinkedIn, you connect with us there. And if you want to get in contact, just follow up, do a one-on-one. Like I said, I have my Calendly link. So if you want to
Mhm.
kind of follow up
Yeah.
virtually or whatever, you have some questions or whatever, that's fine. I think what I'll do is I have a link that has all of that on there now.
Okay.
Like,
Oh, perfect.
and I can send that to you.
Yep. I can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and then if people want to just have a glimpse of some of the stuff that I talk about, I have a like a one pager page, like a one sheet, I think one sheet pro that has clips of my previous podcast interviews,
Mhm.
overviews of the workshops I do. So if people want to
Nice.
get more of that, I got that too.
I did watch that short video you have of your where you were your previous where you were at your job before,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
And I look
your
tired. I
the
look
new you.
real
You
tired.
look tired. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but you were laughing at yourself, which was hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I got 9 other video clips of those. So yeah,
okay, that
I'll
was
probably
pretty
put them on
funny.
there too.
I mean, not funny that you went through that, but it was a funny presentation of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's we think of, oh, I'm tired from I had got a bad night's sleep or a very short period of time, but no, you looked like weeks and months and maybe years tired.
Exhausted. I was
Um,
like, yeah. So
yeah.
that's how I got here. So that's the last piece. So that's the new journey, me transitioning and leaving Jackson
Mhm.
and going up here and basically starting back over pretty much.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, this has been really good. Now, the other joke I was going to make is if you get too big, Apple's going to, either sue you or try to buy your
That's
website or
fine. They can
something.
do that.
No, I'm
Just
just
send a
kidding.
check. That's fine.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Um, all right. Well, Dr. Terrence Johnson, really appreciate you joining us today. Like I said, I didn't know a ton about you, and I think it's been really helpful for everyone. I know you've added a lot of value. So I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for coming on.
All right. Look, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And to our listeners out there, please do give us a good rating and review. It really does help us, especially at this point in the podcast. And I know I talk about it and I don't always do it myself, but if you can take, 2 minutes and give us a 5-star rating and also share the podcast with other listeners, we really appreciate that. So we appreciate the listeners for spending their most valuable resource with us, which is their time. Thanks a lot, everyone.